gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
It's a great line that Mary exclaims at the beginning in this gospel, "Son, why have you done this to us?" You can imagine Mary saying that. Any mom could say that to a child who was a little bit, or appeared to be a little bit disobedient. "Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." That statement should resound with any parent who, or anyone for that matter, who has gone to great lengths to find something that they've lost. And we search and we search and we search some more with great anxiety. I gotta find it. I'm looking for this. What is it that I need? What is it that I'm looking for? There's a kind of hunger that comes from a very deep sense of longing and emptiness, kind of a void in our lives that it's got to be filled some way or another. Well, too often, however, the challenge we face is, well, we don't know what it is that we're hungry for. We don't know what we're looking for. And that's the story of Hannah in the first reading. Hannah, of course, is the mother of Samuel, and Samuel would become the great Old Testament prophet who would be the one to anoint David to be the king. Hannah, is seeking something, desperately seeking. And that's really, that hunger that she has that can only be satisfied in one way. And the backstory is that she's the second wife of Elkanah, and she's unable to have any children. The first wife of Elkanah, and this is one of those, multiple wife situations, which we won't get into. So the first wife is still quite alive, is very prolific. She's had quite a few children by this point. And because Hannah has had no children, the first wife looks down her nose at Hannah, kind of in a condemning way because of this perceived curse. So on their annual pilgrimage to the temple to offer sacrifice, Hannah takes the opportunity to go spend some time in prayer. She goes before the Lord and she pours her heart out. The priest, Eli, sees this happening, sees Hannah sitting there, kneeling there, wherever she is, pouring out her heart to God, and he thinks she's drunk by the way she's behaving. And of course, what do you do with a drunk person in church? You very quickly and kindly escort them out. And that's what Eli wants to do. She wants to get her out of the church because we just can't have this kind of spectacle in church. But Hannah prevails, telling him her sad tale. Of course, Eli relents and doesn't escort her out. He comforts her, assures her of his prayers, and a promise of God's favor. Hannah responds by saying that if indeed God does favor her, the child that she will bear will be dedicated to God. So she goes home with her family, with her husband, and she has relations with her husband, and surprise, surprise, 9 months later, Samuel is born. And that's where we pick up the story in the gospel in that first reading today. So because of this promise, once this child is able to take care of himself, she will return, and she returns to the temple on their annual pilgrimage and leaves Samuel there with Eli as a gift to God, a gift of thanks for what God has done, for God fulfilling his promise. A little bit later in the story, we learn that after she goes home, over the years following, she has more than a few children because God favors her because of what she has done, giving Samuel back to God. So in the midst of all of her suffering, though, Hannah had this hunger, this longing. She knew, though, what she was looking for, and she knew the right way to go about getting it. She starts with prayer. You can imagine Mary and Joseph doing the same thing. Having discovered that Jesus is not with the caravan of family and friends, relatives and acquaintances who are on their way home from their annual pilgrimage to Jerusalem, to the temple, to offer sacrifice. Discovering he's not there, they're saying, God, where's our son? What did you do with him? Where did he get to? And they go off doing what every parent is going to do with this desperation, this hunger. I've got to find my child. Parents, you know the same feeling. When you hunger, that longing when you seek a lost child. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be a lost child. It can be anything. Because the truth of the matter is, we are all that kind of hungry for something, someone. Although many of us don't have a clue as to what it is that we're hungry for. And if we do have a clue, many have lost their appetite and therefore just given up, saying, I'll never get it. What happens? Well, it's simple. The hunger will remain. It will always be there. It will always be a part of our lives. There will always be this longing, this sense of there's a void in my life that I have to fill. I have to find it. I have to search it out. And since that void is always there, and it always comes up as hunger, what we typically do is, well, what do you do when you're hungry? Head to the kitchen and eat. Isn't that what we do? Now, eating is good. There's two real purposes for eating. It's an important thing for us to do. First, the first purpose for eating is to get energy so that you can live. I mean, that's really the primary reason why we eat. Don't eat, and eventually you'll die. It's that simple. The problem for us is that we make the second purpose for eating the first purpose. And we put what's first or what's second ahead of what's first. We eat for pleasure because we believe that it fills some kind of void. Because we hunger for something, we all seek something, and filling that hunger, finding what we seek, finding what will bring us real pleasure, what will truly satisfy is, well, that's really the greatest spiritual quest that all of us make in life. It's our journey, it's life's journey, filling that hunger, that void. The problem is, many people make that quest, that journey, as a tourist and not as it's meant to be made, as a pilgrim. A tourist is merely out to satisfy pleasure, period. That's it. I just want my pleasure satisfied, and I will do anything, and I will go to any length to make that happen. Pilgrims recognize that there is something more, and they long for that which goes beyond merely satisfying hunger. Tourists believe that, well, I hunger for this, so I'm going to go get it. I'm going to do whatever I can to get it. And then once I get it and I feel satisfied by it, I realize, guess what? I'm still hungry. And they repeat this cycle. You know, it's like this. You go to the refrigerator, you open the doors. I'm hungry, but I don't know what I'm hungry for. Close the door, walk away, come back. I'm still hungry, but I don't know what I'm hungry for. Or another way that we do it is we get involved in some activity. You know, I'm going to get involved in this hobby, and I'm going to really put myself into it, but it just doesn't quite do it. So I get another hobby. It doesn't quite do it. I get another one, and another one, and never really satisfy. Any kind of activity never really satisfies. And then we add to our troubles by trying to fill that void that is created with this hunger with all kinds of things, mostly food, but also with other kinds of things. Gambling, money, work, drinking, sex. And all of those things only serve to dull the hunger of that for which we truly long. And consequently, we settle for something less. Pilgrims, on the other hand, realize that ultimately, that ultimate awareness, that spiritual awareness, leads us to understand that every yearning, in some mysterious way, is a yearning for God. And that's really what that hunger is all about. That's the only thing that can fill that void. And while we might be going through life searching for him far and wide, we're surprised when we discover he's right here all along, right in our very souls, right in our very being. Pilgrims know that finding Jesus does indeed bring something more, so much more than the world can give, because that's what Jesus does. Gives us more than anything else in this world. So both Mary in the gospel and Hannah in that first reading find that for which they search. Their hunger satisfied. What about you? Do you know what you're hungry for? What you long for? But are you a tourist, just seeking to be satisfied and never really satisfied? Or are you a pilgrim like Mary, like Hannah, and you know exactly what will satisfy that deep longing, that great hunger?